All right, so we're looking at the basic sector. Okay, basic materials are basically building materials. It's those things that our economy needs to create other things. Okay, and this was again a very straightforward decision. Honestly, you can see my notes here. Southern Copper has way more cash, less debt, better beta, better returns, all around better numbers. But what I like to talk about though is what these two companies do and what makes them so different. So Eastman has been around for a very long time, and we just talked about what a basic what the basic sector is, and so what Eastman does is they create these chemicals. Okay, it's a chemical company, and so you can see here. I mean, there's just, I mean, you name it, they got it, right? Every sort of chemical you can imagine for use in all sorts of manufacturing, and just creating of other chemicals and other things used to build things. Okay, I mean, I can't even begin to try to pronounce all of the different chemical words here that they're using. But with that being said, with basic materials, and let me say this too, for a very long time, we were in Weyerhaeuser. And Weyerhaeuser is a legacy holding, or was a legacy holding for us, that we purchased back in 2015. And price didn't move around a whole lot, but the company performed really well, and paid a really decent dividend, which is why we got into it. And they were primarily, well, not primarily, they dealt in lumber. Okay, that's what their basic material was lumber. And so as lumber prices rose and fall, so did the price of Weyerhaeuser. And just recently, they decided to suspend their dividend, which is something that happens. But when that happens, that company is no longer investable for us. And so we had to sell out of it. And so now we're looking for a new company to invest in. So with that being said, Eastman doesn't really have one product or one material that we can point to say this is what they do. I mean, they're just all over the place as far as chemicals, which means that their stock price and their company and their revenues are not tied to any one one chemical other than maybe oil, maybe, right? Um, and so that's a good thing because it gives you some diversity. But it is kind of divorced from the traditional, basic material sector company. Okay. Southern Copper Corporation is exactly what you expect it to be. They deal in copper production. Okay. And what I pulled up here is the copper futures chart. Okay. And copper has just skyrocketed, just out of the park, over at least the last year. I remember back when copper was at $2, and that was a big deal. And so now we're looking at copper at $3.50. I remember stories of people stealing condensers and air conditioning units out of buildings just for the copper. People going into buildings and homes and ripping wires out of the wall and melting the plastic down, only to take the copper wires to a recycling plant and turning it in for cash. I mean, copper has been that sort of commodity and that sort of material for a long time. And because of the inflationary nature of our economy right now, where the government just keeps printing money, the commodity prices are going to increase in price along with it. When there's more money in the market, things are going to cost more. And so this basic material is going to rise in price like everything else. Now, what that means is that if there is ever some deflationary um, uh, event that happens, such as, a COVID or something like that, commodity prices can see a dramatic decrease, and so will Southern Copper Corporation. But as of right now, I mean, my goodness, with the U.S. being the reserve currency, as of right now today, now I can't speak to years in the future, but as of right now today and for the foreseeable short term, the U.S. dollar is the world's reserve currency, which means that it's going to be very difficult for anything to happen to really deflate the economy, because anytime that there's any sort of hint that the economy is losing steam, they'll just print more money to kick it in gear again. And so that means that commodity prices are going to continue to rise. And so that's going to bode well for companies like Southern Copper Corporation. So without even really looking at the numbers, just based on that fact alone, Southern Copper is kind of where we want to go. Not to mention, I believe that Southern Copper is what is on the return portfolio. Yeah, right there. And you can see what the price appreciation has done and why, almost 50%. I mean, so if you take Southern Copper Corporation out of this equation, this portfolio does not perform as well as it has. Now, there is something to be said about the percentage of the portfolio that is Southern Copper. It's only, roughly 10%. So it doesn't have a huge effect, but it definitely aided in the return for this portfolio for sure. So let's just look at a quick side by side to give us an idea of where we are. Southern Copper, better dividend, not way better, but a slightly better dividend, so that's always good, especially with, and I didn't mention this before, but with the market at all-time highs and with stock prices at all-time highs, those dividend yields are coming down dramatically, and that's why we've seen this year so many companies at that 2% mark, where they're almost not investable for us. With that being said, I mean, we still have quite a few companies in our basket of stocks across the board, whereas that was not necessarily the case, especially last year in the basic sector. So that's a good thing. That means that prices have come down some, and so the yields are a bit higher, but they're definitely increasing, no question about it. And so Southern Copper, across the board, better net profit, more cash, better alpha, better beta, which is a big one, and even over the last 3 years, it's done better as far as returns. Now, over the last 12 months, Eastmen has definitely been the victor, but I don't believe it's been just that crazy. Let's take a quick look, because I am curious for myself. I mean, there is a reason why we're even looking at Eastmen. And you see it here. Eastmen is the second best performer, with Southern Copper being the best and a 7-time MVP. I mean, you see, I mean, so it's not even a question as to where we're going in the basic sector, Southern Copper.